Hello everyone, my name is Matt Scorpion and welcome to another brand new season of Destiny 2 with Season of the Wish. Now, if you haven't been to my channel before and don't know how generally it works, with a new season, I will of course start covering the seasonal story in terms of a dialogue by dialogue basis, and I will also be covering a few new things just with general new season stuff. In this one, I'll be discussing essentially some of the new stuff that dropped with the season, some of the ways that the world changed, and a variety of new stuff to go by with the general week by week. And in follow-up videos after this, still releasing same day, I will be covering the broad expanse of new weapons and gear that came to the game in one video, as well as the cosmetics that came to Eververse in another video separately. So if you wanted to just bow out because you're waiting for those videos specifically, that will not be this video, it'll be its own separate video. On that same note, to getting into the Destiny world. So, at the same time, right off the bat, just going off my usual rotations, Grandmasters are not available once again. They will be available in the next couple of weeks. Don't know for sure because it seems like they keep changing the details. But at least the current rotation weapon is Warden's Law, which, while you cannot buy or find the Adept, because obviously Grandmasters are not here, and you can't earn Nightfall ciphers, if you'll have some left over, you can, but you have to make some Vanguard engrams. On that same note, we do have new stuff in every ritual playlist, as expected, as well as endgame comp like Trials and Iron Banner, as always expected. But with that same front, of course, this is a new rotation going for the week, because I don't recall Warden's Law being week 1 last season, but of course we have to wait and see what the full rotation is, so we can see when we get our hands on our new stuff from Nightfalls. And speaking of Nightfalls, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a devilish one. So, the current ones, if I can just get to Conqueror, the current Nightfall this week is Silas Battleground Cosmodrome, which, after looking at everything else, Bungie is not listening to what people are generally saying. At least they're not listening to me when they say they hate Battlegrounds in the Nightfall playlist. So from the top, we also have Hypernet Current, which I think is a big pain in the butt. Corrupted, which while it can be made easier, it is still a pain in the butt. Birthplace of the Vile, which isn't inherently terrible. Lake of Shadows, the new version, which is essentially terrible. And then again, Heist Battleground Moon, another season in the row. Now, I get Bungie is trying to make Grandmaster Nightfalls difficult, but when we have consistently difficult ones, not to mention repeat from season to season, that does not go right in people's opinion, because they like to do something different or at least have an easy option. Personally, I think the easiest options might be between Birthplace, Hypernet, and Corrupted. That might be the easiest ones. And of course, when we have a double farm week, it'll be on the Psyops Battleground. Regardless, getting into it, like I said, there is Psyops Battleground on the Cosmodrome currently for the strikes, which is, of course, not Grandmaster, so not essentially worth farming unless you just want a decent roll of Warden's Law. And of course, modifiers being the Seasonal Overcharge, as well as Stasis Surge and Solar Surge for once not a Strand Surge, and then Overcharge Shotgun. So if you wanted to go about and do that. And then, of course, nothing new in Gambit per the usual, except for the return of a Dreaming City map to that, if I recall. And then for Crucible as well, we have Rift for our rotation game mode, as well as Relic for a 6v6 Crucible Labs, as well as, I believe, Rumble and Checkmate is now a more permanent thing, as well as Elimination in Player versus Player. So, while there isn't just a basic quick play, aside from Rift, it seems, which is a quick play, and 6 Checkmate Control being 6v6 unranked, it's hard to say whether or not this is good stuff, considering Elimination is 3v3, but not comp and everything, but I digress. Getting into the rest of the world, of course, there is new seasonal stuff, and I just need to get to it. In the Helm, of course, a new wing is opened, and there has been some shifts, so you might notice that Ghost of the Deep is not currently the primary dungeon, and I'll get into the reasons why in a second. But basically, if you wanted to wait for a little bit, if you had any gear you wanted to earn, or exotics, specifically the Navigator, of course, if you wanted to wait, it does enter the rotation eventually. It is, I think, 2 weeks away from being in rotation, so if you wish to farm it out, you can do that. And the reason why, of course, it's not in rotation or it's not primary is we are getting a new dungeon later this week, which, of course, will be the primary, which will have pinnacle rewards, new gear, and everything. So essentially what Ghost of the Deep was has now become this new dungeon, which details on that down the line. But on that same note as well, for the rotations, the current farming dungeon is actually Duality, which is weird because the rotation skipped backwards 2 weeks from Spire to Duality, which of course Artifice Armor and everything like that if you want to farm out from there. And speaking of farming stuff, the irony is that Dreaming City's Last Wish is currently the farming raid. So if you wanted to double back and get all the red borders you have been missing from Last Wish, or just wanted to canonically kill Riven before actually going to find her very overgrown corpse, you can go ahead and do that as well. Now, on that same note, for a variety of other things, our weekly farming exotic mission is the Exotic Seraph Shield mission, which of course means anything from Season of the Chosen. Revision 0 or its associate intrinsic perks are available for grabs if you need them. And for Crota's and intellect focused on Master Mode, as well as Equal Vessels Challenge, which is Master Air Ute, Stasis, and Solar Surge, as well as Overcharged Trace Rifle, which it's looking interesting from some of the sneak peeks and weapons I got before. But on that same note, there isn't actually much else that actually rotated in the world. Of course, Rahul did get materials exchange. That is something I already covered in another video. You can earn Ascendant Alloys very easily nowadays. But in addition to that as well, Banshee 44 did get a bit of a rework because he now has Reputation as addition to Focus Decoding, which does have some rotations. But I imagine, or from what I understood, there was only going to be one per day that rotates daily, but it seems like it's currently Soros and Amalon, and we might be getting Amalon and Hake, or Hake and Weist, or something. But to each their own. Bungie did say how it was going to work, but it doesn't look exactly like what I thought it would be. But at the same time, he did get a bit of a refresh on what's available in his stock. Of course, things more consistently newer, like Lunalada, which is from Season of the Haunted, Ion of Draconis, which is from Season 15, and is still technically outdated, but still pretty recent. Dire Promise, which is from Season 10, and still quite outdated, but at the same time a very consistent hit cannon. Same with the Season 11 Cold Denial, a very consistent gun, just wish it had updated perks. Same thing with Palmyra. It is starting to get old at this point, but if you needed a crafted rocket launcher, you could do worse just getting a rocket launcher, but if you needed something specific, Palmyra is essentially the first option when it comes to crafted rocket launchers if you need something. But on that same note, there isn't much else that I can recall rotated throughout the season. Now, getting into some other things really quick, there for Master Mode, or Legend Mode Dares of Eternity, the rotation is Hive, Vex, and Ballista Auric for that this week. And of course, that has reset for your reputations. The seasonal story challenges have also come back, which means in association with all the usual challenges for experience, you have complete week 1 of the seasonal story for Season of the Wish, and then the City A Wish builds for completing Dreaming City public events, lost sectors, and patrols, blind well completions granting additional progress. And you also have the Defeat Combatants with Solar Weapons challenge, which is really easy if you just pick up Dragon's Breath from the Season Pass, or just use a solar weapon. And then we also have Silver Blade, which is acquiring the Swords and Signs Triumph, which I believe is in association with the Witcher stuff that came to the store, which is also comparative to the EDZ. In the EDZ, earn bonus progress by defeating, or earn progress by completing bounties, patrols, and public events and lost sectors. And then we also have Focused Intention, which is basically using primary ammo weapons, everything that doesn't require green or purple, that has infinite ammo, bonus progress for bow, hand cannon, pulse rifle, or auto rifle final blows, and by defeating guardians. Now, it's a little late in the video, but I consider this at this point with the new season. There is, of course, new artifact perks, which going forward is Overload Post Rifle, Overload Auto Rifle, Unstoppable Bow, Unstoppable Hand Cannon, and Barrier Sidearms. Now, only one barrier option that isn't that great, of course, is an issue, but of course barrier is better than ever. And I'll give you more reasons why further down the line. And we also have Flame, Fiber, and Freeze for combining the Solar and Strand and Solar and Stasis Siphon mods into one, so Solar and Darkness. And we also have Kindling Trigger, which is one of those things where Radiant causes Scorched weapon or solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched enemies. And we also have Blast Radius for rapid final blows with rocket launcher and grenade launchers granting armor charge, like the long-range hits with a scout rifle, if I believe, last season. We also have Origin Perk Specialization, where basically the Sundering, Nanomunitions, and Nanotech Tracer Rocket Origin traits are improved, and additionally, those weapons are always overcharged. And we also have From Whence You Came for increasing ability damage to Taken and Scorn, so probably helpful for our Nightfalls this season. And then we also have Wished Into Being. While your super is nearly fully charged, ability final blows spawn Orbs of Power. I believe just extra oomph to get you across. And also, wearing Seasonal Wish armor decreases super amount threshold that is required. Then we also have Origin Perk Specialization 2, basically anything from Season of Defiance, Season of the Deep, Season of the Witch, or this season, have benefited Origin traits. Additionally, weapons with the traits are always overcharged. Heart of the Flame, where casting your Solar Super grants nearby allies Radiant and increases the ability damage of, or decrease the damage of your Super for each nearby ally. And we also have Torch, while Radiant deals increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuff. It's basically Solar good against Darkness. We also have Flint Striker for rapid solar precision final hits and solar weapon final blows, granting Radiant, which is what I mentioned before. Essentially, if you don't have any, the melee gives you Radiant or any of the variety of perks. If you just use that, it's a little bit easier to get Radiant, which is also anti-barrier. So do not fret for anti-piercer or AB sidearm, generally not being great. Then we also have Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an orb grants Strand weapons Unraveling rounds. Also anti-barrier, that's pretty good. We also have Pillar of Ice for defeating an encased combatant spawns Stasis Crystal, which is also good. It's free headstone. And you also have Revitalizing Blast, causing damage with a solar ability, weakens champions and bosses for a short duration, which of course is basically Melting Point, which is just great. Overload Rocket Launchers, which is going to be curious in combination with Dragon's Breath, because that seems like a really good option. And we also have Dragon's Bite for breaking a combatant shield with a Strand or Stasis weapon has a chance to suspend or freeze the target, which is basically just additional stuffs. And then the important one this season, Argent Ordnance. Firing your rocket launcher consumes 1 stack of armor charge, granting increased damage and reload speed until you reload or stow your rocket launcher. Basically, for every rocket you fire, you can burn an armor charge and get bonus damage and reload speed to basically just buff your damage. And the Return of Fabled Solo Operative, which if you don't know what this is, basically when you're in a fire team alone, you'll deal increased damage to all combatants. A really good thing for solo dungeons, depending on how tanky everything in the dungeon is. And you also have Raise Precision, while Radiant, Solar Precision Final Blows cause combatants to ignite, which I'm going to have some fun with that on my Hierarchy Solar Boom build. And you also have Hail the Storm for shattering encased targets, and Stasis Crystals deal increased damage. Shattering Stasis Crystals release shards of ice at damage and slow targets, which sounds nifty. And we also have Horde Shuttle, which is damaging unravel targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling, which also just plain great. But on that note, of course, that is mostly everything in the reset that is important enough to warrant going over. Of course, I missed out on Ada and a few other things, but I will get back to that in the more weekly here today. With that, my name is Matt Scorpion, and I'll see you in the next video.